There is a kind of fear people rarely admit out loud. The fear of losing someone who became emotionally important to them. Not losing them physically, not losing access to their messages or their presence, but losing the feeling they bring into their life. The comfort, the understanding, the quiet emotional safety that slowly became part of their existence. And the strange thing is, the deeper this fear becomes, the more people try to hide it. Because emotional dependence makes people feel vulnerable. It forces them to confront something uncomfortable, that another person has the power to affect them deeply. And for many people, that realization feels dangerous. So instead of expressing how much they care, they control it, suppress it, hide it behind distance, behind silence, behind behavior that seems confusing from the outside. You might have noticed it before. Someone acting distant, while secretly paying attention to everything you do. Someone pretending not to care, while reacting emotionally to your absence. Someone pulling away, right when the connection starts becoming deeper. And you sit there wondering, if they care this much, why do they act this way? Because hidden fear changes behavior. Most people imagine attachment as something obvious. Open affection, constant reassurance, visible closeness. But deep attachment does not always look warm. Sometimes, it looks guarded. Because the more someone fears losing you, the more aware they become of how much power you hold emotionally. And not everyone knows how to handle that awareness. Some people soften when they care deeply. Others become defensive, not because they feel less, but because they feel too much. You see, there is a quiet battle that happens inside people when emotional attachment grows. Part of them wants connection, safety, closeness, but another part fears dependency, fears vulnerability, fears abandonment. And when those fears are strong enough, they create contradictions. They move closer, then suddenly pull away. They show emotion, then become distant. They make you feel deeply wanted, then strangely ignored. Not because their feelings disappeared, but because fear interrupted them. This is what makes emotionally guarded people so confusing. Their actions do not always reflect the depth of their emotions. Because emotions are filtered through fear, through pride, through survival instincts built long before you ever entered their life. Maybe they learned that attachment leads to pain. Maybe they learned that vulnerability gets punished. Maybe they experienced abandonment deeply enough that closeness now feels threatening. So when someone like you enters their world and suddenly becomes emotionally important, their mind does not only feel connection, it also feels danger. Danger of loss, danger of heartbreak, danger of needing someone too much. And instead of admitting this fear openly, they hide it. Sometimes behind emotional distance, sometimes behind control, sometimes behind silence that says more than words ever could. Because fear often disguises itself as indifference. But indifference does not obsess over your absence. Indifference does not notice your emotional shifts. Indifference does not become unsettled when you become distant. Fear does. That is why people who care deeply sometimes act the coldest. Because they are trying to manage emotions they do not fully know how to express safely. And the deeper the attachment becomes, the stronger this internal conflict grows. At first, they may feel in control. The connection feels exciting, comfortable, natural, but slowly, without realizing it, you become emotionally significant. Your messages affect their mood. Your silence changes their energy. Your approval begins to matter more than they want to admit. And this is where fear quietly enters. Because now, losing you feels possible. And once someone becomes aware of the possibility of loss, they start protecting themselves emotionally. Not always consciously, but instinctively. They may become harder to read, more inconsistent, more withdrawn at unexpected moments. And from the outside, it looks confusing. But internally, they are struggling with attachment, struggling with how much they care, how much they need your presence, how deeply your absence would affect them. Because dependence threatens the ego. The ego wants control, independence. emotional certainty. But deep connection removes certainty. It creates emotional risk. And emotional risk terrifies people who are used to protecting themselves. So instead of openly admitting, "I'm afraid of losing you," they communicate it indirectly. Through jealousy they deny. Through attention they pretend is casual. Through emotional reactions that seem too intense for someone who supposedly doesn't care. And this hidden fear becomes strongest when they feel distance growing between you. Because distance activates attachment. Suddenly, they become more aware of your value, more aware of your emotional importance, more aware of how empty things would feel without you there. And that awareness creates tension, a tension between wanting to hold on and wanting to appear unaffected. This is why some people become emotionally restless when they feel you pulling away. Not because their ego is bruised, though ego is part of it, but because your distance forces them to confront feelings they were trying to control. The possibility of losing you becomes real, and reality exposes attachment quickly. They start overthinking, wondering if something changed, checking for signs, replaying conversations, paying attention to details they once ignored. Because now, your presence no longer feels guaranteed. And humans rarely recognize emotional dependence fully until certainty disappears. This is where silence becomes powerful. Not manipulative silence, not punishment, but natural emotional withdrawal. Because when your energy shifts, they feel it immediately, even if they pretend they don't. Because emotionally attached people become highly sensitive to emotional absence. Your silence changes the emotional atmosphere around them. And suddenly, the person who acted distant starts feeling the distance themselves. This creates a strange emotional reversal. The one who once seemed emotionally unavailable now feels emotionally unsettled. Not because they stopped caring before, but because they can no longer avoid recognizing how much they care now. And this realization often frightens them even more, because now they are face to face with emotional truth. You matter deeply to them, not superficially, not temporarily, deeply. And deep attachment changes people. It makes them vulnerable in ways they cannot easily control. It makes them emotional in places they tried to remain guarded. It makes your absence feel louder than they expected. This is why emotionally guarded people often struggle most with loss, because they spent so much time suppressing emotion that when the reality of losing someone appears, everything surfaces at once. The fear, the attachment, the emotional dependence they tried so hard to deny. And suddenly, they realize something painful. You became part of their emotional stability. Your presence grounded them more than they admitted. Your attention comforted them more than they realized. Your understanding healed parts of them they never spoke about. And now, the idea of losing that feels unbearable. But pride still interferes. Because admitting fear feels like surrender. So instead of openly saying, "I don't want to lose you," they continue hiding behind subtle behavior, mixed signals, distance, care disguised as indifference. And this creates confusion for you, because you can feel the emotional depth, but you cannot fully access it. You sense their attachment, but they rarely express it clearly enough to feel secure. And this is where emotional exhaustion begins, because trying to interpret hidden feelings eventually becomes draining. No matter how deeply someone feels, love cannot survive entirely in silence. Connection requires honesty, presence, emotional courage, and hidden fear often prevents people from offering those things consistently. This is the tragedy of emotional suppression. The very fear of losing someone can create the behavior that pushes them away. Because distance creates misunderstanding, silence creates uncertainty, emotional inconsistency creates instability, and eventually, the connection begins suffering under the weight of unspoken emotions. But beneath all of it, the truth remains the same. They fear losing you more than they admit. Not because you are perfect, not because they are obsessed, but because emotional connection is rare. And when someone touches your inner world deeply, The thought of losing them changes you, even if you never fully say it out loud. This is the deeper psychological truth most people avoid confronting. Humans are far more emotionally dependent than they pretend to be. People want to believe they are detached, independent, unaffected, but real emotional bonds reveal otherwise. Because when someone truly matters, their absence creates emotional consequences, and no amount of pride can fully silence that. This is why emotionally significant people leave lasting effects, not because they demand attention, but because they become emotionally woven into someone's inner life. And once that happens, fear naturally follows. Fear of change, fear of distance, fear of abandonment, fear of losing something that feels emotionally irreplaceable. And the people who fear this most are often the ones who express it least, because vulnerability feels unsafe to them. So instead of saying, "I need you," they say nothing. Instead of expressing attachment openly, they hide behind emotional control. But hidden emotion still reveals itself eventually. In reactions, in behavior, in subtle moments where the mask slips. And if you pay attention carefully, you can always feel the truth beneath the surface. The truth that says, your presence matters more than they know how to admit. And maybe that realization changes something inside you too. Maybe it helps you stop confusing emotional distance with lack of feeling. Maybe it helps you understand that guarded people often love in hidden ways. But maybe it also reminds you of something equally important, that being deeply valued emotionally is not enough on its own, because real connection still requires expression, honesty, emotional courage. And no matter how deeply someone fears losing you, eventually they must choose whether they will continue hiding or finally learn how to love without fear controlling them. So now I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt that someone cared deeply about you, but hid it behind distance, silence, or mixed signals? Or have you ever been the person who feared losing someone more than you could admit out loud? Comment below. I want to hear your experience. And if this spoke to something real inside you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Silent Ego.